Look, I know I fixed you once before when a squid attacked you, but this is a little bit out of my hands. I don't think I can handle this. I mean, it's not my responsibility because you decided to pick a fight with Movie Optimus. And here I thought I was done with the Titans Return line until the next wave of Deluxes or Voyagers dropped, but I just happened to go into Walmart the other day and they just happened to have one Titans Return Deluxe on the peg, and it was the one I previously skipped. So you know what, it's a long wait for Takara's release. Let's just go ahead and grab the brand new Cup, or Sergeant Cup for trademark reasons, and just see how the toy came out. So first off, taking a look at the toy, nice shades of two-tone light blue, kind of baby blue and teal colors going on here, very reminiscent of the G1 toy. Where Takara is going to favor the anime and robot mode, for some reason, Hasbro decided the vehicle mode is the most important, and in a very Hasbro-like move, it's more important to them to stick to the toy colors and accuracy rather than the cartoon. But what we get is fairly nice and consistent coloration all around. Even has the gray painted along the underside to match the original toy, even though we're not going to get quite the same once we get to robot mode. Interesting that. But yeah, he is the very same futuristic, kind of sci-fi, Cybertronian pickup truck that he used to be, except this time he actually has something along the lines of a tailgate and an actual bed that looks like something could fit on there, which is a vast improvement over the original G1 toy, which just looked like would spill things off if you ever tried to actually, you know, take anything anywhere. So yeah, the truck mode itself works fairly well. I have a little bit of trouble keeping it together in some spots, but nothing terrible, nothing too bad. So I like the angles. I like how boxy and sharp this thing is, very reminiscent of the old one. There's a few surprises in here too. He's got his Autobot sigil, nice and bold there. Nice big clear canopy. Very, very easy to see the Titan Master riding inside. We'll get to him here in a bit. Headlights painted up, all four in yellow. A lot of paint going on in here. There's actually a lot more light blue plastic than it appears. So a lot of paint matching going on that works pretty well. Nothing toward the tailgate. That's a little bit unfortunate, but oh well. Hey, at least the rims are painted. That's rare these days. You know what else is really weird about these? The wheels are actually translucent. It's the same plastic they used up here. You can see it when it's held up to a light. I really can't show it very well here. You can see little glimmers of it. And over here where it's pegged in, you can see the mushroom peg where it's clearly the translucent color. It's kind of interesting. I'm not sure why. I guess that's the mold sprue that had room for the wheels. But yeah, there's actually a lot of paint going on in the tires just to make them look correct. Interesting that. So yeah, he's got a lot of things going on. He definitely looks the part of the original G1 toy. Maybe a little bit too boxy. He's actually a little bit boxier than the old toy. And because of the transformation engineering, he does look rather broken up at the top, which is a little bit unfortunate. You know, as well to the back here. Though I will say to the back, he has tons of these little pegs for Titan Masters to catch a ride in the back of the pickup truck, which is cool enough, I guess. And then he also has these ports in the back for any kind of weapons you want to plug in, including the ones he comes with. These two big double hand cannons, I assume. This is best description I have. It's kind of unfortunate because I really liked his old G1 laser rifle, but hey, this actually fits a Titan Master at some point. So you can go ahead and store them in the back if you want, and that kind of gives you a little bit more of a solid look, though it also looks like he's going to blast a hole in his own head, or wheel him around to the back in case he's being chased. That's an option. You also have the portholes here in the sides, so you can also peg to the side, and that makes more sense for combat. And then, of course, it's a Titan Master toy, so we can also combine the guns and create something that a Titan Master can sit in. Aside from the fact that the double barrel look actually works for this weapon, you have these little pegs there right there in the front. That's where the Titan Master pegs in, which is a little bit more secure than usual, but a little bit harder to work with than this usual tab that goes into the back of their legs. And then you have, I don't know what to do with this at this point. Because of that second handle, it's a little bit weird to get this into a position that actually makes sense. You can kind of go off to the side like that, and then that kind of works, but you can't do it this way because it starts hitting parts and doesn't fit very well. I don't know. I could have used something that pointed forward a little bit, I guess. Oh well. We'll set that aside, and with that out of the way, we can go into vehicle mode. But first, canopy open, we will pull out the Titan Master Partner for this toy, Flintlock. Which is about the most appropriate name for the old-timer Autobot. Flintlock is rather disappointing. There's something about that gray and that light blue that makes him look like an unfinished prototype. Still no paint anywhere on these things. It's really unfortunate. Why would you bother giving them a name and pretending like they're a character if you're not going to give them any kind of attention whatsoever? Anyway, it's the usual ball joints in the shoulders that really only work for forward and back motion. Ball joint in the neck, which really doesn't work all that well in this mode. And then, yeah, a hinge for the hips to create the bend in the knees so it can sit down. That's about all you got. Beyond that, you just flip it over, get it ready for his robot mode. We'll set that aside, and we'll see how this guy transforms. And he actually transforms in a pretty interesting way. So I'm going to undo a lot of these panels here so we can get him transformed. Comes with a lot of tab-in panels, but hey, it's not like to the movie extreme of anything, so it still works pretty well. Basically, the entire vehicle unpeels in order to create his legs. So you kind of have to position everything as you go in order to get it all into the correct position. Everything folds over, tabs in over there, tabs there, to the back, tabs in there. And that creates your solid leg out of a huge panel that takes up the entire side of the vehicle. It's actually pretty clever. Hasbro's getting really, really good at creating these big panels that combine together into the limbs. It's one way of taking care of the vehicle mode parts as well as hiding them away. See, this gets rid of one of the wheels very easily, which is kind of neat. All right, so rotate this whole thing around. Tuck the front of the vehicle up into the chest and close it down like so. Flatten that out. From there, we're going to unclip those from the back of the vehicle and unclip them from themselves. A little tiny peg at the top of the shoulder. Fold that down, straighten up the hands. Very quick and easy transformation, but there's some cleverness to it, so it wins a lot of points for me on that. And then we plug the head in and get you into your full robot mode. And now we have to adjust the camera. There we go. Behold, Sergeant Cup, full robot mode, looking very much like himself. He's very much the IDW style of Cup, though there are some liberties being taken here on the part of Hasbro for other priorities, and we'll discuss those here in a bit. For starters, we're going to take a look at the head, which is decidedly G1 toy gray, rather than the very pale green of the cartoon. Again, look for Takara to get that. But the head sculpt itself does represent the current model of Cup pretty well. He's got a sneer to his face, which I'd expect of the gruff old-timer, so that kind of works. His head's a little bit more roundish, a little bit more smooth than I would expect. He's not quite as flat top as I expect Cup to be, but I'd still call it a better version than, say, his previous generation's offerings. Especially that, in that his vehicle mode actually looks like his actual vehicle. So the toy itself, the robot mode is actually pretty clean. As you can see, the proportions work pretty well. He's always had the thin arms, so we don't hold that against him. And toward the back, look at that. So clean, no backpack whatsoever, no leftover shell or kibble to really speak of. It all kind of tucks away into his legs pretty effectively. He's almost kind of got a Viacon-esque thing to where all of that vehicle shell just tucks up into these really solid legs. Those hold up pretty well. We've introduced a lot of gray into this toy. It's not just the underside anymore. It is all over. Shoulders, hips, as well as the lower legs, which is accurate to most depictions of Cup. Where I'm missing the gray is here on the forearms, and I find that color-wise, this is where I'm getting thrown off the most. I can deal with the extra gray on the shoulders and this, but what I'm missing is the gray on the forearms, which is pretty traditional of Cup. You can also see he's got a sculpt line for his striping that he typically has on his forearms that has been missed here completely. It's not even attempted to paint in. That's unfortunate. But at the same time, I kind of see what they were going for. Like, this keeps the look of the vehicle mode as solid as it does. And with all those hinges that are exposed, they kind of have to do that, don't you? So it's an unfortunate sacrifice. But it's interesting to me that they chose to put priority on the vehicle for a change. That's not typically what you'd see. Paint-wise, he's got a lot of little yellow paint apps. Again, I could use them on the forearms. No harm in that. No, the yellow does kind of strike me because typically it's orange on Cup. Though it doesn't look bad. It just looks a little off. I would have preferred the orange. I do like how you have that internal detail still showing too. It keeps his torso from looking as plain as it normally would. There's part of me that kind of yearns for that all-white chest, and maybe when I have the Takara version, I'll paint this one to match that. But for now, yeah, no, this one works out pretty fine. I think what gets me is just how boxy and sharp-edged he is. 90 degrees there, 90 degrees at the chest, 90 degrees at the shoulders. It's very boxy, like for Cup especially, because in the animation model, he's very round. So that, I think that was the other visual distraction that got to me a little bit. Beyond that, like, he's still doing a fine job here. So that's still, it might just be me nitpicking here. So articulation, head, full ball joint rotation. There's not a whole lot of room in the ball joint for left and right tilting, whatever, but rotates just fine. Ball joint at the shoulder. There is a little bit of extra paneling that does get in the way of some positions, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but he does have a hinge at the torso, so he gets a little bit more range than usual. Bicep rotation, nice and tight on mine. Double jointed elbow, very nice to see any time on a deluxe. No wrist rotation, unfortunately, because of how he has to hinge his wrist in a very strange backwards way. You don't often see that. Waist articulation on mine, which is actually a little bit too loose. Thighs work well. Ball joints in all directions, and he gets caught in a few spots, but nothing terrible. Thighs work all the way around, 90 degrees at the knee. And no tilt of any kind. It's just slanted at a natural angle. So what you do get is a pretty articulate Cup. For an old-timer, he's got a lot of motion going on in those old rickety joints of his. So don't count him out. He can still go with the best of them. Speaking of, he still has that gun, which looks fine in hand. You can do that. That works out. I prefer the double cannon look. It kind of wears this pretty well. I would assume an old soldier like him wouldn't be satisfied with just one big hand cannon anymore. Knows the true benefit of going in dual wielding. That said, if you don't want to really hold on to the weapons at all, just looking plain old Cup, you have little storage pegs in the back. And the pegs are actually peg size so that you can actually keep the combined weapon there, which is an interesting choice and tidies things up quite nicely. You also have that peg hole in the back for any of your standard display stands to plug into. They still do that. I just never point it out because it's such a common thing these days. That, my friends, is your Titans Return Sergeant Cup. He's actually a really, really good figure with some really clever engineering to make his toy work. There are nitpicks I can have. The vehicle mode looks a little broken up, and the robot mode has really a little bit too boxy for my taste, especially. And yes, the deco with those all baby blue arms does kind of get to me. I could have used some kind of deco there just to break up all of that blue. Beyond that, though, he is a fun toy. He does a lot of clever stuff. He's well articulated, good accessories. I mean, I can nitpick because of personal preference, but on a pure technical level, this toy is really, really impressive.